Hello and welcome back to the Trinity Stamps YouTube channel for another video in the 12 Days of Christmas series. This is Jess Francisco from the YouTube channel A Card Day's Work, and I'm really excited to share a framed piece of wall art with you guys today inspired by this catalog or advertisement that I got from Tiny Prints. Every year I look at these catalogs or advertisements that I get in the mail for printed greeting cards, and I am usually able to take some inspiration from those photos and turn them into an amazing project for my card making or craft room or whatever I'm doing at the time. Last year and the year before, I took some inspiration from one of these catalogs and made some gorgeous cards that I was so super happy with. So I figured that this year was a good time to do the same thing. Now, instead of making a greeting card like I normally would, I'm actually making a piece of framed wall art. This is going to go into a shadow box, so a little bit of dimension is okay, and I took advantage of that by adding some foam tape later in the project. To start things off, I decided to use the Marshmallow Alphabet Die Set from Trinity, and then now I'm using one of their adorable Christmas themed paper pads to go ahead and cut out a few different squares of coordinating paper to go with my theme here. I chose some reds, some greens, and then a more neutral color that has those cute cookie cutter sort of patterns on them. I cut each of these pieces to 2 inches by 2 inches and then arranged them on my cardstock here. Now you can see that I took inspiration from the catalog or advertisement, but I didn't make it identical. I used the fa la la sort of theme with the sort of color blocking idea, but mine is a 3x3 instead of a 2x3, and then I've obviously changed things up by adding other elements, but it was a really good starting point, and I am so happy with the way that this all came together in the end. Now, to move on with the project, I decided to go ahead and do some stamping. I chose the sentiments from this adorable Let Your Light Shine stamp set, and it has a coordinating die that I will use as well. But basically here, all I'm doing is stamping out the sentiments. So I used Let Your Light Shine and then Merry and Bright, and I've stamped these out on a piece of white cardstock. I decided to keep it extremely simple and use white cardstock just so that you would actually be able to see it against those colorful and patterned backgrounds. Now, I did do some coloring as well on this adorable little Christmas gnome, so I'm going to go ahead and work on that. I'll pop a little bit of music on for you guys, and I'll be right back with you once the coloring is done. All right, so our coloring is all done. I used the coordinating die set to go ahead and cut out the adorable gnome image, and then I'm ready to go ahead and start assembling my card. Now, you may be wondering, how did I end up with so many extra little pieces? Off camera, I did actually go ahead and cut out some additional copies of these letters. So I used the Marshmallow Alphabet Die Set, and I cut these out of just some kids' craft foam because I wanted a little bit of dimension. I wanted there to be a little extra something so it wasn't all flat. And so this really helped to kind of make them more fun and dimensional, and I really, really like how these turned out. I just used some red craft foam, but you can use whatever you have on hand. Since they're the exact same size, you really shouldn't see anything poking out from behind, and the only time you would really notice anything is if you were looking at it from the side, if it were a different color, but I don't think that that's going to be a big concern, especially for me, since mine is in a shadow box. You wouldn't be able to see this from the side anyway. So once I got all of those glued on and ready to go, I did go ahead and cut some foam tape. I applied that foam tape to the back of my little square pieces here, and then went ahead and placed those onto my cardstock. Now this cardstock measures 8 inches by 8 inches because that is the size of my shadow box. But if you have a different frame or a different shadow box, you can always tweak these measurements and make it really fit to whatever you have on hand. I think that this could work for a really wide variety of sizes and shapes, so definitely experiment with it and figure out how to make it your own and make it work with what you already have. All right, so once I've got my foam all ready to go, I will go ahead and start figuring out placement for everything else. Now the foam portion did take me a little bit of time, just because there were a lot of little pieces, and I ended up having to trim a couple of them because they ended up being a little bit too long. That happens sometimes. I'm not worried about it, but it does take a little bit of extra time if you don't measure and plan things out, I suppose. But I do tend to be more of a fly by the seat of my pants crafter, and I don't do too much planning in advance because I feel like, for me at least, it stifles my creativity a little bit. If I do too much planning or have too much of an idea of what I want with a card, I'm always disappointed that it doesn't turn out quite how I had imagined. So I find that for me to really get those creative juices flowing and my inspiration strong and ready for creation, I tend to just make one decision at a time, and then when I finish that, I kind of move on to the next thing and then make those decisions as they come. Again, with placement here, I probably could have measured and gotten a really nice even spacing, but that's not my style. So I did just sort of place them by eye, or kind of, I don't know. I just placed them where I thought they looked good, but they're probably not all even. So if you prefer something that's a more exact measurement or precise fit, definitely feel free to measure. So you can see how this is coming together. I actually love this. I felt like it kind of almost reminded me of a Christmas quilt, sort of, and I don't know, it was giving me all of the holiday vibes. I absolutely love this, and I just think that it is so stinking cute. And honestly, if the letters are crooked here, I think it adds a little bit of charm, just because you do have the straight lines from the square pieces and the square of the actual cardstock itself. So if you had some like wonky letters or something, it might make it a little more playful. So again, this is all personal preference. Spice it up or change it or keep it exactly as it is here, and it'll look adorable in the end. Now I'm going to go ahead and start placing all of my elements here onto my background. I have my gnome all ready to go, and I've got my Merry and Bright and Let Your Light Shine pieces as well. I decided for the gnome, I wanted him to sort of stick off the edges and go kind of towards the center of my card. I didn't want it to be too perfectly square and clear cut everywhere. I wanted there to be a little bit of playfulness here. So I put the gnome kind of towards the inner side rather than in the center there. I went ahead and attached Let Your Light Shine and Merry and Bright, and then I'm ready to go ahead and pop this into the frame. I decided I was going to try to use my little metal snips to get these open because I was worried about chipping my nails, but it didn't really work, so I braved it. I didn't chip any nails, thank goodness, but it was a real concern, okay? Once I got this in, I went ahead and replaced the backer. I made sure that it was facing upright when I put this, because I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally put the hanging piece upside down, and I'm like, oh, not again. So I made sure that it was right side up this time. And then that finishes off the framed wall art, you guys. I absolutely love how this turned out, and I hope that you guys all do too. I hope you're also inspired to create something with your Trinity Stamps products that's not just a card this holiday season. If you do, be sure to tag Trinity Stamps on social media, as well as me at A Card Day's Work if you're on Instagram, and I will love to see what you guys are creating. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in another one really soon.